Hi, my name's Kate Reynolds and I'm the author of Party Planning for Children and Teens on the Autism Spectrum. One of the things with parties, of course, is that if you have a bad experience at the beginning, it can taint all the rest of your experiences. So you either don't want to hold parties or you're very wary of them, and that's very draining if you're a parent or caregiver. Really, the book is to try and give parents and caregivers tips that might help them have slightly better experiences than perhaps I've had. The thing with parties for younger children or lower functioning children is that, as with all autism, autistic children like structure. They don't like surprises, which I'm afraid most standard parties and social gatherings are full of. Unexpected noises, unexpected smells, all these different stimuli which can send an autistic child into some kind of meltdown or really just running for the door. One of the things that's very important with younger children is to use visual aids to enable them to understand what is happening, what is going to take place in the future. One of the things that is in the book is actually using the party invitation as a visual aid so that the child can run through with the parent or caregiver exactly what's going to happen before they get to the party, which will help reduce their levels of anxiety. Once they're at the party, a repetition of what's going to happen and following through what's been on the invitation so that the structure is the same as the child has been made aware of at home actually enables the child to feel much more secure and less challenged by the party and the social setup itself. Most autistic children, and indeed ones who are older than 2 to 8, have a special interest, a fascination that they will focus on, and it's worthwhile exploiting that and using that to increase their levels of predictability, in a party, so that they feel more secure. So quite often what I would do is find out from parents and caregivers before a party what their child's special interest was, and perhaps use that to indicate anything that was their own possession when they arrived, so perhaps their own cup, their own plates, their own, sometimes you might want to give them a container to put some of their things in while perhaps they're eating, and that would be a container which has their special interest symbol on the outside. And if you go through this with parents and caregivers before their child comes to the party, the child is then aware that that symbol is their own symbol. It increases the predictability and it increases their grasp of what is happening and lessens their anxieties. But remember that not all children have the same special interests. So I've been to parties where the party child's special interest was fantastically exploited, and there was a great party based on their own interest, which was marvellous for the child, but most of the other children there couldn't engage in it at all because it was a very specific interest to this child. So what it might be worthwhile doing to use those special interests is perhaps to do things like, if it's dress up, for example, dress up according to their own special interest, in which case you will have a child, each of the children will be relishing the opportunity to engage in their own interest, to show, to just sit and absorb in their own fascinations. And now, depending on what you're thinking of doing for your party, if you're thinking of one sole activity, let's say swimming, and this again is from personal experience, please do make sure that all of the children who are invited to your party can engage in that one activity. I do recall a party where one girl couldn't swim, was terrified of the water, and actually spent the entire party sitting at the edge of the swimming pool. As somebody holding the party, you need to ensure that everybody is able to do that activity. And if you gauge it to the lowest ability, then you'll cover everybody. If you're going to do more than one sole activity for your party, I would suggest that you choose perhaps between 2 to 4 activities. Don't pack the day with loads and loads of activities the entire time, because you'll need time to explain how a game works, to explain so that everyone who's at the party, all the children, are able to engage in it. And it also gives children an opportunity to understand and remove themselves from that game if it isn't something they feel able to engage in. What I would suggest is at the beginning of a party, just in case people are late, and also so that it relieves some of the anxiety of some of the children there. You do something that's very physical. Now, sometimes, that might be something like trampolining, it might be something where you've got them running around doing a game, just something so that they can physically de-stress before you start to try and engage them in something perhaps a bit more concentrated. I would also say to beware of entertainers. I have been to some parties which would have been absolutely fine for typical children would have loved them. But when you have entertainers producing flapping pigeons from out of nowhere or doing very realistic, scary magic tricks, you actually can end up with some very frightened children who take everything on board as if it were actually happening. Even your 8-year-olds. So you have to remember that that they will take things quite literally. And the final thing I would say is that you have to have a quiet room. It really is very, very important. There will be some activities that children simply are not able to engage in, either for whatever reason, and you can't accommodate absolutely every nuance of an autistic child's personality or behaviours. So a quiet room will allow the child to just retreat for a while, perhaps while a noisy activity is taking place or an activity they don't want to engage in, and then they can be reintroduced to the party without it being a really traumatic experience. The quiet room is also very helpful if you have a child who does have some kind of emotional outburst for whatever reason, so they can either cover their heads with something to keep the world out, or can listen to music or do something that's quiet, just feel removed from all the different stimuli that are taking place at the party, and that will enable them to feel reconstituted and, you hope, come back to the party and actually leave the party at the end wanting to either have another one or at least go to another one, or at least feel that it wasn't a bad experience. And that's one of the purposes of this. So always have a quiet room. Okay, well, thank you for listening. I hope these ideas have been of help and will be of help to you in the future, and I wish you good luck with any parties you might have.